Welcome to our business track of the Data Science Salon YouTube channel. For this session, I have Amy Gershkoff Bolles, former Chief Data Officer at Bitly. The talent market for data science has shifted quite a bit, especially in the age of COVID. Amy shares important tips on how hiring managers and teams can attract and retain data scientists in their organizations, which is really important for a lot of organizations at this time. And she also gives career advice to data scientists on important factors to consider when getting hired. Enjoy.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome all of you. I'm so excited to be part of an event that is all about women in data and data science. And so it is really inspiring to be part of a group of such fantastic women. And I'm really excited to get to the opportunity to talk with all of you today about something near and dear to my heart, which is about the talent market for data science. And especially in this age of COVID, there have certainly been a lot of changes. So let's dive right in. So COVID has really fundamentally changed the talent market for data science. There was a survey that was conducted last month, and it found that 50% of data science teams have seen layoffs and furloughs and salary cuts over the last several months. 42% of data science teams have seen no impact at all from everything happening in COVID. And 8% of data science teams saw an expansion. And when I look at my own network and think about friends that have been reaching out to me, I have both friends that are reaching out who've been laid off and furloughed, who are fantastic data scientists who are looking for jobs. And I also have friends who are chief data officers or chief analytics officers at really large companies, and some medium and some small companies, who are desperate to hire great talent. And so it's a very interesting time because we simultaneously are seeing a huge increase in the demand for data science talent, as well as the unfortunate effects of COVID and the recession, creating a significant number of really talented people who are unemployed. So as I mentioned, many of the larger companies and some medium and smaller ones too are taking this opportunity to scoop up some really great data science talent. I know a number of the larger companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google have announced that they're hiring significant numbers of engineers, data scientists, and analysts over the coming months. But many of the small and medium-sized businesses are hiring too, and they're really struggling actually to find top data science talent, despite the fact that a really significant number of very talented data scientists are unemployed. And what's also interesting is that among data scientists who are employed, according to the same survey that was done last month, about a third are actually quite nervous about whether they're going to remain employed. So what we actually see happening here is that the marketplace for talent and data science is operating very inefficiently, because you see some strong talent are remaining unemployed and some great companies can't find the talent that they need. So we have this sort of mismatch in the marketplace. So what does this mean for you? Most people I know in data science right now fall into one of two categories. They're either trying desperately to hire data scientists, or they're trying desperately to get hired as a data scientist. So if you're one of the companies that's looking to hire, a few things that you should know and think about. The competition for strong data science talent is as fierce as it's ever been. So despite COVID and despite the recession, the competition for good data science talent remains incredibly strong. And so if you're looking to snap up some of the best talent, you have to be just as competitive as you were in the pre-COVID environment. So some of the ways to be as competitive as possible include investing in the right recruiters. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these in my talk. Investing in the right recruiters is absolutely mission critical to success, because the recruiter is generally the company's first foot forward in talking to a candidate. To attract the best candidates, you're also going to want clarity around the mission and vision for the data science team, an understanding of where they report in, how they do their work, what kinds of data they'll be able to utilize, what their infrastructure is like, and so forth. And that may sound self-evident, but I've been surprised actually at the number of recruiters who've reached out to me over the years who actually don't necessarily know those types of basic questions. The third thing to know about hiring right now is diversity has always been mission critical in making good hires, but it is more important now than ever. And it is absolutely critical to make sure that you're getting a diverse slate of candidates when you're hiring for any role. And that's always, again, been true, but it's more so true now than ever. And I'm going to talk about some strategies for ensuring a diverse slate of candidates. And last, but certainly not least, once you hire great talent, your organization needs to absolutely be focused in investing in growth and retention for your employees, because top talent, if you don't invest in them, they leave. And as I mentioned, the competition for talent is fierce. And so if your company is not one of the ones investing in growth and development for your employees, they're going to go work somewhere that is. So that's on the hiring side. If you're trying to get hired, competition for the best jobs is as fierce as it's ever been. So as I mentioned, there are significant numbers of very qualified data scientists who are unemployed. And so it's as important as it's ever been to put your best foot forward. And I'm going to talk about a few strategies that go beyond the basics, like leveraging your LinkedIn network. One of the things I'm going to talk about is that it may be time to think about an advanced degree if you don't already have one. And you may want to think twice about some of the much more affordable options around online boot camps, and I'll describe why. I'm also going to talk about how you can set yourself apart from other strong data science candidates by really showcasing strong business thinking and communication skills. And that can often be the difference between getting hired and not. Last but certainly not least, culture really matters. It matters in many cases more than anything else, certainly to employee happiness. And a significant and important component of that culture is making sure that the company not only talks the talk, but also walks the walk around diversity and inclusion. And that's something that you'll want to strongly consider as you're weighing options for different companies that you could work at. All right, so let's talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. So first, as I mentioned, hiring the right recruiters really matters because the competition for top data science talent is as fierce as it's ever been. So I've experienced in my time quite a lot of variation in the quality of recruiters that have reached out to me over the years. So here are a couple of examples on the left of real LinkedIn in-mails that I've received. And these are just a few examples. I've received plenty more. So I just want to talk about these for a moment, because remember, each of these LinkedIn in-mails is the first experience that a strong data science candidate has with your company. So first, in the upper left, I get at least one LinkedIn mail a week where someone gets my name wrong. So in this case, my name is Amy. They refer to me as Gina. People get the first name wrong all the time. That's never a good sign. Second is, if you look in the sort of just to the right, I often receive emails from recruiters that just don't make any sense. So for example, the one that says a track record of scaling engineering organizations that evaluate data quality. First of all, it's for a data science role. And so it's sort of surprising that that's what they chose to highlight. And secondly, that sentence just doesn't make any sense. What does that even mean? To the left, you'll see I get a number of recruiters that just send me a photo and say, hey, would you like to connect about a role? I find this particularly off-putting way to reach out to somebody to recruit them with strong technical skills. This tells me absolutely nothing about the company or the role, and it doesn't seem all that appropriate either. And so I always do find that particularly off-putting, and I have gotten several of those over the course of my career. And last at the bottom is an example of an in-mail I received that is quite common as well, which is that it provides no information about the company or really about the role. And I see this happen all the time, where they just say, hey, we're hiring for a data science role. Are you interested? Which is not very helpful. And so if your company wants to win the war for top data science talent, there's a few things that you ought to try to do. First, specialize in recruiters that actually understand how to recruit data scientists. And that may sound obvious, but in an era where everyone's looking to save a few pennies and cut costs where they can, sometimes cuts in the HR department or the recruiting department specifically can end up happening, and that can be quite penny wise and pound foolish. You want to also make sure that your recruiters understand the factors that are going to actually matter to candidates, and that they can represent your organization and data science at your organization in the very best possible light. And so it's really important to have recruiters who can understand the basics of how data is used at your company, what the opportunities are for data science, and how it adds business value. And finally, you want recruiters that are really going to be keeping diversity in mind throughout the process and looking to source a diverse slate of candidates as well. So hiring the right recruiters, it really does matter. Part of this, as I mentioned, is them understanding where data science is situated in the organization and what the consequences of that are. A common question that I always encourage candidates to ask very early in the process is, where does data science report in? Is it part of the CTO's organization? Is it part of the product organization? Is it part of a research and development lab? All of those are be very, very different jobs for obvious reasons, even if the data science team was exactly the same. And so understanding as well, are data scientists embedded? It's very common these days for data scientists to be embedded in different business units. And so understanding then who manages their workflow, who would be your actual boss, what sort of professional development opportunities there are for you, all of that is super important. Understanding how success is defined, and how the data science team receives resources is also quite important. Generally speaking, all work is a team sport, and to be successful in data science in a big way in your organization, you're likely going to need to give and receive resources from engineering, product, sometimes marketing, finance, business operations, maybe many other teams. And so if that's the case, understanding how you request and receive those resources also becomes important. So these are all important for organizations to keep in mind when they're hiring, to make sure that they can have robust answers to these type of questions. It's also important for any top data science candidate, they're going to want to know some very basics about your data architecture and how the data are used. So for example, how much data do you have? Is it primarily structured or unstructured? Do you have real-time streaming data? Are you journeying to the cloud, or is your data already in the cloud? Is there a data science sandbox? How do you get models into production? What is your company doing with regard to data privacy and compliance? These are all questions that a good data science candidate, even at a fairly junior level, can and will ask you. And so making sure that everyone involved in the hiring process, from the data science hiring manager all the way to the recruiter who gets on the phone with the candidate initially, making sure that everyone's on the same page about the answers to these questions is absolutely critically important if you want to win the war for great data science talent. So last but certainly not least, on the hiring side, diversity is as important now as it's ever been. And optimally, you want to draw an incredibly diverse slate of candidates. And diversity, I have found in my experience hiring data science teams, you want to look at diversity in the most expansive possible way. You want to look for candidates that are diverse across many different dimensions: race, ethnicity, gender, age, but also geography and education, what their major was, previous employers, and even their work style. It's been my experience that hiring managers and companies can often underestimate how important it is to have a diverse slate of candidates and to have a diverse team that is diverse across all of these different dimensions. You don't just want, on a data science team, all classically trained econometricians from the same university who then went to work at the same tech company. You want a real diversity of thought in every conceivable way, because it produces better business outcomes, and because it's better for the team, and it's better overall for the company and for each member of the team. And so to truly get a diverse slate of candidates, while it could be tempting to just simply look to your LinkedIn network and to pull people that you already know, the most diverse networks of candidates come from intentionally sourcing for diversity. Your own personal network is biased by your own experiences, where you went to school, where you grew up, whom you know. And so for a truly diverse slate of candidates, you're going to want to really expand beyond your network and your company's network to really source the most diverse possible slate of candidates from the entire data science industry. So that's on the hiring side, but let us not forget that investing in growth and retention is also important. So once you've hired this fantastic set of data science team members, you have to also invest in their growth and development, because otherwise the top talent will leave. And investing in growth and development, these days, it's very easy for companies to talk about that as sending you to a conference once a year or a class once a year, especially now that all of those are virtual. It's very easy to do that. But that's not the same as actually investing in growth, development, and retention. You want to understand the professional goals of each and every employee and how their manager and the company is going to help them achieve those goals, and seek out ways to support the employee throughout the year, not just in a once-a-year development conversation. And that's mission critical to holding on to the best talent. So that's on the hiring side. Now, what happens if you're trying to get hired? So in addition to leveraging your LinkedIn network, which I'm sure all talented data scientists are already doing, is leveraging the data that they have, there are a few other tips and tricks and suggestions that I might offer. The first is I would pass on most of the online boot camps unless you're specifically looking to just augment your skill set in one particular area. The reason is because the field of data science is much too large to acquire an entire holistic overview of the whole field simply from a few weeks in an online course. And what I've seen in the current economy is that many people think they've been considering pivoting to a career in data science. And they think now, given where the economy is, now is the time to take a few weeks online boot camp and then market themselves as a data scientist. And I would really recommend against that, because it's not going to give you the technical depth that you need to be successful. Our field is too large now. However, it might be a good time to consider an advanced degree, especially because many of these degree programs are offering distance learning options given the current pandemic. And that could be actually a great way to build up your credentials during this time, particularly if you're in between jobs. It can be a great way to add to your resume during this time. And there's often many universities that are offering different kinds of scholarships and other financial assistance, again, given the pandemic and recession. So I recommend thinking about those types of programs, but also thinking twice about some of the online degrees and online boot camps, I mean, unless you're looking to just specifically augment one tiny portion of your skill set. As a foundational layer, it's just not deep enough. The second thing to keep in mind is that in this environment and this marketplace for data science talent, technical skills alone are usually insufficient. You need very strong communication skills and business thinking in order to land a data science job. And so one of the things that you could do to set yourself apart from other candidates is I often see candidates who are striving to set themselves apart by highlighting certain technical skills that they have, but actually would be better served, and in some of the folks that I've coached around applying for jobs, I've really suggested that they instead highlight their extremely strong communication skills or their strong business thinking skills. And there are a few ways that you can do this very easily right now from home. One is on your LinkedIn profile, your resume, social media pages. Emphasize the business value that you delivered and not just the algorithms you used or the technical approach that you took. That's a way to not only demonstrate the business value, but also to demonstrate that you have strong business thinking and communication skills. And that in and of itself could absolutely set you apart from hundreds or thousands of other applicants for the same job, because the hiring manager will know that you have additional depth beyond just the technical skills. Second is definitely get to know the company's products and services. I'm always surprised in the almost 2 decades I've been in this field. I've hired hundreds and hundreds of data scientists. I'm always surprised how many come into the interview with no knowledge at all of our products and services. So unless you're hiring in a very stealth startup environment, usually the company's public, their products and services are widely available. They have a website, social media pages, and other ways to learn about them. And you want to come in with some ideas about how data science can enhance the company's offerings. And coming in with those ideas, even if the ideas aren't exactly the right fit, the fact that you took the time to research the company's products and services and came in with ideas of your own will show that you have creativity, business thinking, communication skills, and that's all going to add to your cachet as a candidate. And last but not least, I would say it's very important in a case study interview situation as a data scientist to narrate your approach and talk about the business value and trade-offs as you go, not simply the technical trade-offs around which algorithm to use. And again, I have seen in my own hiring that this has often set some candidates by far apart from the others because of their ability to think through the actual business impact of what they're doing rather than just the specific algorithms they're using. I would also say, very important as you're looking at different companies, and considering different job possibilities is to really research the workplace culture, because research shows that workplace culture has a bigger impact on employee happiness than literally any other factor. More important than the types of projects you're working on, the data you're working on, who your manager is workplace culture. And so I would wait till you have a job offer, but then I would ask some really tough questions about how are disagreements handled? How are promotions and raises determined? What are the hours really like, especially right now where everyone's working from home during COVID, or many people are in the data science field? Some companies, the hours are really, really long because everyone's working from home, and others have made a more concerted effort to have their employees have work-life balance. And really think about diversity as well. Ensure that the company is not only talking the talk on diversity, but really, really walking the walk. You should be, when you're interviewing, seeing a diverse set of colleagues. And if you don't, that should be a red flag about the degree to which the company actually takes diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously. So those are a few thoughts on hiring and on getting hired in the age of COVID, and I look forward to taking your questions. And thank you to DSS Elevate for having me at this event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. We had a couple of questions come through, so I'll just dive right in. One of the questions that someone asked was, how can someone who needs help or coaching with communication get that extra support or training?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there are a lot of good resources online, particularly ones in the sort of business school context, business school type textbooks that really can help add depth around communication skills and business thinking skills. There are also many universities that now, in the age of COVID, a lot of instruction is online. Many universities are offering executive education courses that you can take to get a certificate where, it's not the commitment or cost of a full semester, but will give you a way to take a course, for example, in business strategy or business communication. These are very common courses in business schools. So I would say I would look to your local university for what kind of options they have. If they have a business school at your local university, I would look to that for some really good online options for certification programs and courses that can help immerse you in that type of skill development.
Awesome. And then this is sort of, I think maybe a two-part question, but someone's asking, by advanced degrees, do you need master's or PhD? And is the time really necessary to create a PhD really practical, since data science changes so quickly?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think today, and of course, data science as a field is continuing to evolve, and it is changing so rapidly. I think today there are a number of really fantastic master's degree programs at lots and lots of universities. I actually wrote an article a few years ago about how few universities were offering graduate degrees in data science, master's degrees. And since then, the number of universities has really increased that offer these types of degrees, which has been fantastic, I think, for our field. So I strongly advocate that if you're looking to pivot to a career in data science, from some other career, whether that's engineering or analytics or some totally different field altogether, that a master's degree program can be a great way to do that. While I did go after the master's and get my PhD, and while I learned an enormous amount through that process, and it was incredibly valuable to me and served as a foundational layer for me in terms of technical training for the rest of my career, I don't believe that a PhD is necessary for everybody or even for most people. But I do think a master's degree can be very helpful in terms of adding technical breadth as well as depth. One of the things I talked about briefly in my presentation is how large the field is and how important it is if you're a data scientist at any sort of company or organization to at least be conversant not only in the different families of algorithms, but also in adjacencies, like how to scale algorithms in a deployment context in a big data environment, how to think about experimentation and testing algorithms that are live in production in a product context or a marketing context. All of these are critically important in addition to the actual technical pieces of many different families of algorithms. And that's why I was suggesting that quick hit 4-week boot camp or 6-week boot camp is unlikely to be sufficient to give you all of that foundation that would be helpful to a long and fruitful career as a data scientist.
Awesome. And you kind of answered this question just regarding the master's degree, but is there any other advice that you would give to a recent graduate who's trying to break into the field? And then we also had someone asking for some advice if someone's looking to change careers to data science. So I'm not sure if those would be the same answer, but two similar questions that were asked.
Yeah, two great questions. So I would say if you're looking for, breaking into the field and you're a new graduate or have, been working in the field perhaps for a little bit of time and perhaps lost your job in this economy, what I didn't talk about in my presentation, because I know so many other people talk about this in their presentations, but it nevertheless is important, is absolutely leverage your network. And that can be done in a variety of ways. There's, of course, the classic ways, for example, looking at people you're connected to on LinkedIn and really leveraging LinkedIn as a really strong platform for professional networking. But I also encourage people to go beyond that. If you're a recent graduate of university, then you have an alumni network, for example. I've had a number of folks reach out to me over the years from my two alma maters, Cornell and Princeton, who've said, hey, I went to your school, can you help me? And I wasn't always able to, connect every single one of those people to a job, but sometimes I was able to, connect them with someone I knew who was hiring or help them with their resume or in some other way. And so I would definitely encourage you to leverage your alumni networks, but also other networks in your communities as well. If you're part of a local community or charity organization, religious institution or other sort of, kind of local chapter of some organization, leveraging those connections as well for leads and jobs can be very helpful. And I've also seen in the current economy a number of people who've posted on LinkedIn, even if they didn't have anyone specific in their network that they thought could help them, they've posted that they are looking for an opportunity and a little bit about themselves. And especially if those posts demonstrated, as I mentioned in my talk, that kind of strong business thinking, communication skills, technical skills, they were able to really articulate those in their posts. Many times I've seen those posts get a lot of attention on LinkedIn, and that's helped to promote them and in many cases connect them with opportunities. So I think leveraging your network remains a critically important component of any job search, and leveraging all aspects of your network is particularly important in the current economic climate. Now, if you're looking to pivot into data science, everything I just said, I believe still applies. But I would also add the following, which is that if you're pivoting into a career in data science, you're pivoting from another career. And all of the work and experiences you've had in that other career, regardless of what that career was, are often incredibly helpful additional context and depth to the work that you would do as a data scientist. So some of the very best data scientists that I've ever worked with actually had careers in something else. And that additional experience and knowledge really enhanced their data science skills. And so I think don't run away from your previous experiences. Double down on your previous experiences, because that's adding depth to you as a candidate that others are less likely to have, and that can be an attractive extra set of skills for a potential employer. but I think you also want to connect the dots for the employer as to how your previous skills will help you in your new role. So for example, if you're pivoting into data science from a career in software development, you could talk about how most data science models, when you go to deploy them, you obviously need a strong understanding of engineering and software development, and your background in that regard is going to make it easier for you to work with the engineering team around some of the model deployment aspects of your job. That's like one type of example about ways to really highlight your previous background as an asset rather than running away from it as a liability.
Awesome. I'm glad that we have extra time for questions because there's definitely a lot coming in. One more that someone asked was, I've found that often companies without a mature data science program won't realize how its software development lifecycle can differ from normal development, especially in an agile environment. Are there good ways to ask about this in an interview?
Yes, this is a really great question. And one of the things that I have found personally is that when you ask questions about a topic like that in a general way in an interview, you're unlikely to get back data, if you will, that's specific enough to actually give you real insight into what's going on. So what I tend to do, and what I advise others to do, is to ask about the last data science model that was produced and shipped in that company, and then to ask how did that process happen? Walk me through a little bit about that process. And by asking about a specific model rather than sort of generally how does data science work with engineering, or in general how do models get shipped, but by asking about the specifics, you're generally able to get a little bit better information about how things actually happen. And don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions such as, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in shipping that model? Those types of questions can be very instructive. I think in general for job candidates, the more specific you are in the questions you ask about any topic, the more likely you are to get back useful information. So for example, if you want to know about work-life balance at the company, don't ask generally what is work-life balance like at the company. Ask the person who would be your manager, how late they typically work, or when was the last time he or she took PTO. That sort of more specific question can often give you greater insight versus a more general question where people tend to say what they think you want to hear rather than getting into the specifics that would give you the real data.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. I think we have time for one more question before we go to the break here. So someone asked, do you think having a strong GitHub portfolio is necessary?
So I don't think it's 100% necessary, but I think it's absolutely an asset for sure. And, although I talked a lot about business thinking and communication skills in this presentation and in the Q&A, I talked about those less so than technical skills because they are more rare in data science than strong technical skills. But strong technical skills are nevertheless obviously incredibly important. And I know that I personally, in hiring data scientists, have often found that a strong portfolio like that can be an enormous window into the depth and breadth of technical skills, and can be a particularly good asset for someone who is pivoting into a data science career, or who is perhaps a little bit earlier in their career as a data scientist. If you are earlier in your career and you don't have a litany of projects that you've already done that can be in a GitHub portfolio, don't be afraid to use some publicly available data sets and to create some of your own projects. That can be a great way to showcase that although you might be earlier in your career, having just pivoted your career towards data science, that you nevertheless have really put in the time for great technical depth in significant number of areas. And so I think that can absolutely be a great asset for a candidate. In addition to, of course, the business thinking and communication skills, finding ways to showcase those as well.
That was presentation by Amy Gershkoff Bolles, former Chief Data Officer at Bitly, where Amy shared her advice on hiring data science teams and attracting and retaining talent, and provided tips for data scientists who are looking to get into data science and new career opportunities. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below.